Welcome back. Today we're making this adorable red panda cake. It's made with some orange vanilla cake layers that I colored using a bit of gel food coloring, and then once they were baked and cooled, I leveled them and shaped them just to make it easier to create this red panda's body. After spreading some buttercream on my cake drum to help that first cake layer stick, I started to stack my cake layers. I'm building this with 3 6-inch cake layers, and then that's topped off with 1 4-inch cake layer, which I've trimmed down to make that tapered body. I'm adding a nice even layer of buttercream between my cake layers, and once these are stacked, I'm going to insert a bubble tea straw into them to act as kind of my central dowel. I like using bubble tea straws over wooden dowels because they're easier to trim to the right height, and they work just as well. So once that bubble tea straw was in place, I added a thin crumb coat all around the cake and smoothed it out using both my offset spatula and my acetate sheet. If you're unfamiliar with acetate sheets, they're just really a thin piece of plastic that's flexible and are great for smoothing frosting onto curved cakes like this. Making my red panda's head was a little bit more challenging, and I chilled the body in the freezer before adding it to give the cake a bit of extra stability. This is 3 6-inch cake layers, and one of them I baked in a kind of domed pan, which helped make it a lot easier to get the curved look on top of his head. I had a very gentle touch as I crumb coated the head, just to make sure that I didn't push anything out of place and that I really covered the whole thing and got it nice and smooth. Next, I used my cake decorating Rice Krispie treats to make my red panda's legs, arms, and his fluffy tail. And you really want to press those together with your hands to make them super compact, which will make them easier to add to your cake and a lot easier to frost. As you can see, these are quite firm. So I pressed them into place on my chilled cake and added a little bit of extra buttercream to help that tail stick. Then it was time to add on kind of a second crumb coat because we're going to be piping fur all over this cake, and it's so much easier to get full coverage if you pipe over frosting that's the same color as the frosting that you're piping. So I did a thin crumb coat with orange and brown buttercream and then set to work piping the fur all over this cake. This is really a time-consuming process, so feel free to take breaks and definitely wrap your piping bag with some paper towels to help minimize the transfer of heat from your hands into the frosting. I took some breaks, as you can see, and worked on his little paws and then set to work covering the front of his body with chocolate buttercream. Then I used some black, white, and pink fondant to make my red panda's facial features and his ears. I added a bit of buttercream over the ears, and then my red panda cake was all complete. This cake was definitely a labor of love, and like all of my animal cakes, was pretty challenging to make, but I loved the way that it turned out. I thought he was so cute, and I loved how he was kind of waving high with his one arm. So here's a sneak peek at the inside of the cake and those delicious orange vanilla cake layers. I did feel bad cutting into him, but it had to be done. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed it, and until next time, happy baking.